This video is intended for my Christian audience. It is the night of December 24th, a major holiday for Christians. So I would like to take this opportunity to respond to an email I recently received from one of my Christian YouTube subscribers. It is also the 10th day of the Jewish month of Teves, a sad day for the Jews. We fast this day in mourning of the siege of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon in the year 423 BCE. What began on this day culminated in the destruction of the first temple. We have a tradition that all the Jewish fast days associated with the destruction of the temple will be transformed after the coming of the Messiah into joyous holidays. May we merit to celebrate this day very soon. Before I prepared this video, I asked my best friend and my most respected advisor, my wife, and she advised me against it. She felt it might offend or alienate some of my Christian audience. I usually follow her sage advice, but this time I asked her if she minds if I respectfully disagree, to which she responded, "Do whatever you feel is correct." I have too much love and respect for my Christian friends to allow myself not to be completely transparent with them or to pander to them. Our friendship runs very deep, and it is based on shared goals and shared dreams. Dreams of a redeemed world in which all mankind live in peace and harmony and serve God in unison. There are many details in which we disagree, but they are all quite irrelevant to the greater picture. And of course, all of us God-fearing Jews and Christians love President Trump and look forward to the inauguration of his second term in 27 days. I am confident that my Christian friends will appreciate my openness and our friendship will only grow deeper. So here I go. Following is the text of that email. I really enjoy your videos and I pray that your predictions are correct. I have a question for you, which you may not be comfortable answering, but I figured I may as well ask. I have read several books about why Jews do not accept Christianity. Many aspects of Christianity that Jews do not accept, I do not accept either. I am deeply ashamed of how miserably Christians have treated Jews throughout the ages. But I do not identify with those Christians. I do not believe God ever rejected the Jews. In the Bible, God declares many times that His covenant with the Jews is eternal, regardless of how they act. They may be punished for their sins, but He will never give up on them. Of course, I do not have to quote to you verses from the Hebrew Bible, like Leviticus 26, where God promises to forgive the sins of Israel, and that He will remember His covenant with Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham, and that even when they are exiled to foreign lands because of their sins, He will not grow tired of them, and He will not break His covenant with them. And in Isaiah 50, God declares that He never gave the Jews a bill of divorce, and never gave them away to creditors. And what can be more explicit than the powerful words of God to the prophet Isaiah in chapter 54? For the mountains may move and the hills may collapse, but my kindness will never leave you, and my covenant with you will never be abolished, says God who loves you. I cannot even fathom how Christians ever were able to claim that God abrogated His covenant with the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is also clear to me that the return of the Jews in our generation to establish the state of Israel is a fulfillment of the biblical prophecies promising that at the end of days God will bring the Jews back to the land of Israel. I also believe it is very important for Jews to follow their traditions. I believe Jesus was a religious Jew who followed Jewish law meticulously and encouraged His Jewish followers to do the same. This is clearly stated in the Christian Bible several times, and here she quotes from Matthew 5:18 and 19:16 and John 15:10. I'm not familiar with the Christian Bible. However, I still believe, she continues, that Jesus will be the Messiah. From a Jewish perspective, is there anything wrong for a Gentile to be a Christian? Sincerely, Dorothy. Now, before I get to Dorothy's question, I would like to talk a little about this day, which is a major holiday for Christians. The history of this holiday goes back very far. In fact, we have a tradition that it was marked by the very first human beings, Adam and Eve. The story is recorded in the Talmud, Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 8a. In the Garden of Eden, it did not get dark at night. After they were expelled from the garden and they experienced their first night, which was a Saturday night, Adam and Eve were scared of the darkness. God taught them how to bring forth fire from flintstones to create light and warmth. Jews commemorate this gift every Saturday night with a special blessing on a special candle during the Havdalah service. Adam and Eve were created on the Jewish New Year, which occurs in September or early October. They noticed, as days went on, that the nights kept on getting longer and longer. They were fearful that because of their sin, the night will eventually completely overtake the day, and without sunlight the entire planet will wither away and die. The winter solstice occurs annually in the northern hemisphere on December 21st or 22nd. For 8 days before the solstice, they fasted and prayed for forgiveness. However, when the solstice arrives, they realized that the nights were getting shorter and the days longer. They realized that their fears had been unfounded, that the length of days and nights is merely a cycle due to the rotation of the planet. And they marked the 8 days after the solstice as days of thanksgiving to God. The next year they celebrated both the 8 days before the solstice and the 8 days after. Now, as the Bible records, mankind sadly devolved into paganism. Nobody likes to give up having fun, so the 2 8-day holidays declared by Adam as thanksgiving to the Almighty God were eventually degraded into pagan holidays. This went on for thousands of years. In the time of the early Christians, it was celebrated by the Romans with disgusting and cruel rituals. The holidays were called Calenda and Saturnalia. The Romans who converted to Christianity did not want to give up these holidays, so they transformed them into Christian holidays. However, it took quite a while for the holiday to take on its current flavor of being a day of inner joy and giving. I provided a link in the description if you want to read a detailed history of how this holiday evolved. For Jews, however, Christmas was far from a holiday. For the better part of the last 1,000 years, it has been a night of terror. Jews venturing out into the streets were often beat up or even killed as part of the celebrations. So much so that several hundred years ago, rabbis in Central and Eastern Europe banned all Jews from leaving their homes to go to synagogue or to the study halls. The rabbis were so concerned that Jews, who were very eager to study Torah, might venture out into the streets, that they issued a total ban on studying Torah even at home. In many communities, this custom is observed to this very day. Christians have come a long way. Today, millions upon millions of Christians are our best friends and our closest allies. This transformation has been predicted by our prophets, as I elaborated upon in previous videos. And now to get to Dorothy's question. The sign of a good friendship or a healthy marriage is not one that is free of disagreements, but rather a good relationship is one in which disagreements, which inevitably occur amongst human beings, are conducted in a respectful, non-judgmental way. It is only the crackpots on the left who believe that everyone should be free to say whatever they want and do whatever they want, providing that they do not say anything which contradicts their philosophy. So it is okay for thugs to destroy businesses and loot stores and beat up people and even kill some people, as long as it's done in the name of BLM. It is also okay for terrorists to blow up women and children if they are doing it to express their frustration about the occupation. It is also okay to insist that one is a woman and demand access to women's bathrooms and to compete in women's sports events, even if they are biologically men. Everything is okay except arguing with them. If you have the chutzpah to challenge any of their indisputable axioms, you are pure evil, and they are morally obligated to do everything in their power to make yours and your family's life miserable and to destroy your reputation and your source of income. However, we, God-fearing Jews and Christians, believe the exact opposite. You are not free to say whatever you want, and you are not permitted to gossip. You're not permitted to lie. You're not permitted to fool or manipulate people. You have no right to force people to accept your fantasies regarding your gender and to demand that they address you accordingly. And you are surely not permitted under any circumstance to cause any harm, bodily or financially, to any other human being unless you are doing so to protect yourself from violent physical aggression. What we do allow, and even encourage, is for people to voice, in a respectful way, opposing views. Every page in the Talmud is full of disagreements. Even arguing with God is not off limits in Judaism, as Moses and many other Jewish prophets had done several times. We have zero interest in silencing those who disagree with us. I am therefore confident that none of my Christian friends will be offended in the slightest if I state some of our differences regarding some of the fundamentals of our respective religions. Christianity puts a strong emphasis on one's beliefs. To many Christians, belief in Jesus is extremely important. Judaism does not agree with this. Your actions are much more important than your beliefs. Belief in God is important in Judaism because otherwise there is no real reason to love and respect every human being. Although bright thinkers like Sam Harris insist that one can be moral without belief in God, there is no historical proof that this is sustainable. If human beings do not have a soul and are simply a random assembly of molecules, there is no compelling reason to love and respect them. It is basically an emotional decision. That is why the Declaration of Independence of our great country stresses that our unalienable rights to life and freedom were endowed by our Creator. Nonetheless, Judaism maintains that belief in God in and of itself has limited value. God would much prefer you emulate His compassionate ways even if you do not believe in Him. In fact, Judaism does not even consider people like Sam Harris atheists. The God he insists he does not believe in actually does not exist. Although he is very educated in a lot of disciplines, his understanding of Judaism is very weak. He read the Bible very superficially without consulting the scores of great Jewish commentators, and he concluded that God was mean and vengeful. So the fact that he does not believe in the God he thinks is being portrayed in the Bible is actually quite commendable. Neither do I believe in that God. Regarding the true God of the universe, he is completely ignorant, and therefore he cannot deny his existence. People the likes of Sam Harris, who are nice and moral people, are infinitely more beloved in the eyes of God than jihadist Muslims who pray 5 times a day or even 500 times a day. They are actually much worse than atheists. Which is worse, a child who denies the existence of his parents, or a child who has loving and devoted parents, who dedicated their lives to their children? But this child proclaims to his thousands of friends on Facebook and Instagram that his parents are the most disgusting, cruel, and evil people on the planet. You tell me which child is worse. Muslims who believe that God takes pleasure in the cruel murder of men, women, and children for the sin of not accepting Islam, a belief that is held by the fanatical religious leadership of Iran, by Hamas, Hezbollah, and who knows how many other millions of Muslims. These guys are 1,000,000 times worse than atheists in the eyes of God. Now, getting back to Dorothy. Jews do not believe that the Jesus the Christians believe in ever existed. No rational person would believe that a woman gave birth to a child without being impregnated by a man. This is an extraordinary claim, and it would require extraordinary proof for anybody to believe it. The resurrection of Jesus is likewise an extraordinary claim which would require extraordinary proof. Christians who are brought up with this belief accept it, just like Muslims who are brought up by Islamic parents believe that Muhammad flew to heaven on a supernatural horse with wings and with the head of a woman. And once he was up there, the angel Gabriel introduced him to God, to Moses, and to Jesus. And, just like Jews who are brought up in a religious home believe in the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea. Most people do not question the beliefs into which they were born and raised. However, the Jewish claim does have a rational basis, because the Torah claims that these miracles were done in the presence of millions of Jews who were commanded never to forget them. So it would be very difficult for some charlatan to approach a group of people and make up the story. The obvious question this guy would be bombarded with is, how come we never heard about this from our parents? If these things were done in the presence of millions of our ancestors, as you claim in the book you say is from God, and in this book it says they were commanded never to forget it, then how did it come about that they did forget about it until you came along and reminded us? This is a very rational argument which does not apply to Christian or Muslim claims. It is hard to refute this on a rational basis, because the rules of logic stipulate that things that are natural occur regularly. The entire discipline of science, of scientific discovery, is based on this axiom. And since there was no other religion, out of the many thousands established throughout human history, that ever made a similar claim as the one Judaism makes, and that is that it is based on the eyewitness testimony of millions of observers to the supernatural claims the religion is based on, the logical conclusion must be that you cannot make up these claims and have them accepted unless they are really true. Now, getting back to Christianity, regardless of whether the story of Jesus is true or not, it is incomprehensible that God would punish somebody for believing in something they were brought up with. Therefore, Christians who lead moral lives are beloved by God regardless of whether they believe in a Messiah who may have never existed. But this is the catch. A belief that justifies immoral behavior is not acceptable, regardless of how a person obtained that belief. So Muslims who are cruel are despised by God, regardless of the fact that they were brought up with the belief that God condones such behavior under certain circumstances. Human beings are meant to challenge beliefs that are inherently immoral. There is no excuse for holding on to them. The same is true with Christians who used to believe that somebody who does not accept Jesus is condemned. This was a cruel belief, and the amount of suffering it caused the Jews is beyond comprehension. Why would God care if somebody believes that at a certain time in history he decided to come down in human form and suffer to atone for the sins of man? If indeed it was God who did it, then obviously it was done altruistically, and God would not demand to be given credit for it. It is completely immoral to believe that God would punish anybody who was brought up as a religious Jew and was taught not to accept the Christian faith, an event to which there is no proof and which is completely irrational, and which all his ancestors for the past 2,000 years have rejected. And that is why good Christians today reject the notion that somebody who does not accept Jesus is condemned. So, the answer to your question, Dorothy, is quite simple. If you want to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, that would be fine for you. Even if you want to believe that Jesus was somehow both a human being and God at the same time, a belief that is unacceptable for Jews, because we believe that God is infinite and cannot become a human. Of course, he could create a human body and use it like an avatar to communicate with people just like he communicates through angels, but he cannot actually become a real human being. But Christianity affirms that he must have made himself into a real human, otherwise he could not suffer, even though at the same time they insist he was also God. Judaism does not accept this possibility. This may seem like a limitation on the infinite power of God, but it is actually not. God can do anything, but he cannot turn himself into a non-God. God also cannot create a stone which he cannot lift. This is actually a deep philosophical discussion which is not for now. The bottom line is, it is a belief which Judaism finds unacceptable. Nevertheless, a non-Jew who holds this belief and leads an honest and moral life is beloved by God and will be rewarded in the world to come, regardless of whether or not they hold a belief that is unacceptable according to Jewish law. Thank you, Dorothy, for your interesting question. I really hope my honest answer does not offend any of my Christian friends. If it does, please accept my apologies. Until next time, Hashem imachem. May God be with you. If you'd like to partner with us or sponsor a video, please drop us an email at torahprophecies@gmail.com or look in the description of this video for details. Thank you for listening.